Hello and welcome to another edition of Political Insider. I'm your host, Herald-Tribune political editor Zac Anderson. Today we're shooting on location. We have a special guest, incoming Senate President Joe Negron. Senator Negron, thanks for being here.
Good to be here.
So you're here on the campus of New College. Earlier today you were at USF and you've been touring colleges throughout the state here because you've kind of made this a priority, maybe really your number one priority, I think you've said, going into your Senate presidency to improve Florida's university system. Can you kind of say why this is so important to you and kind of what you've seen so far on your tour?
Well, the reason I think it's important is universities play a critical role in a state being able to compete for not only economic development, but for being the kind of place that people want to visit and
Sure.
people want to move to. So if you look around the country where you see vibrancy, you almost always see a very strong university presence. Sure. And we have a good university system, but my vision is that we will have national elite destination universities in Florida where students from around the country will want to come to Florida to our universities. So over time, we'll work toward that goal. What I'm hearing really are three things. One, financial insecurity by students is one of the key reasons students don't
Sure.
finish college or they don't finish on time. Two is that our university's infrastructure, and we've seen that here at New College, the dorms that are over 50 years old.
Right.
That we need to do some catching up on our infrastructure at our universities, and then we need to recruit and retain the best faculty so that our universities are well thought of and a destination for qualified students from around the country.
Great. You mentioned infrastructure. For this time, for the first year, I think since 2011, the state is actually bonding to pay for improvements to infrastructure at universities and other public institutions around the state. I think here at New College, they're using some of that money to expand the Science Center, and State College of Florida here is also using some of that money to expand their, build a new library. Can you talk about your philosophy on bonding to, borrowing money to build these facilities? In the past, the governor's been a little leery to do this. It seems like the legislature has been more inclined to go this direction. What's your philosophy going forward?
Well, I think it needs to be done in a responsible manner, but I have no objection to taking revenue streams that we know are predictable and reliable, and with the cheap cost of money right now, just as you can have a mortgage on your home, pay off that mortgage in a responsible, timely manner.
Sure.
I think we can do the same thing when we're building buildings at our university campuses, that we don't have to pay for every penny of it up front. We can use some bonding to do that, but I also think we should use general revenue as well. So I think it's a combination.
Okay. You mentioned that you're very concerned about making college affordable. I know that's something that the governor shares, and that he's been against tuition increases. Some people think that, a mild tuition increase might not be all that bad to kind of help fund some of the universities, that Florida has very low tuition. I think the average is about $6,000 a year for in-state, which is below the average nationwide. What's your position on tuition increases?
Well, Florida has one of the most affordable tuitions in the country. We're one of the very lowest.
Right.
Tuition increases are not part of my plan.
Right.
I think our economy is continuing to improve, and I think we'll have the revenues available within our existing budget to make the investments that I want to make. I'd love to see us get our Bright Futures back to where it pays 100% of tuition plus $300 a semester for books, which is what it used to be.
Right.
And also to make sure our need-based aid is enough so that I don't mind students working part-time. I think that I worked part-time when I went
Sure.
to college, and that's part of life, and actually I think can make the college
Sure.
experience even better. But once students start working 30, 40, or 50 hours a week,
Right.
it's impossible to be a full-time student, particularly in the difficult areas like engineering and other
Right.
science areas. So my goal is that with families participating and students carrying their fair share, that we make sure that every student can attend the university to which they're accepted,
Right.
regardless of their financial background.
So you'd like to see more need-based aid?
I think so.
Great. Last question here. Here at New College, there has been some concern about some of the performance funding. In recent years, most of the increases for universities have been tied to these performance metrics that have been set by the State Board of Governors. And I think you brought up some of them today, the 4-year graduation rate, the 6-year graduation rate, how much money students are making after college. And, there's been some concern that maybe those don't quite adequately capture, what New College does. I don't know the feedback that you heard, if you thought those concerns were valid, but just your thoughts on those performance measures and how much you think funding should be tied to performance measures going forward?
Well, I am a strong supporter of our performance funding system. I think we can have a reasonable debate about what items should be measured. I think that starting salary 6 months after graduation is important,
Right.
but as we learned today, there are students who decide to go into professions and occupations that pay less, that are very meaningful, and I don't think the state should be in the business of telling people where to work. I think it's a good number to keep track of
Right.
overall. I do think on the 4-year graduation rate, though, I have a hard line on that.
Sure.
I think that if a student is working part-time, there's no reason they can't finish a 4-year degree in 4 years. So we're going to challenge our students to do better, and also our universities there's a new term that they're using called intrusive advising. And that means when a student starts to struggle,
Right.
not waiting until their parents have come to pick them
Right.
up,
Being
to take them
proactive.
away, but to step in and help the student get back on track. And so I think we can do some things as a state to make our graduation rate higher during the 4 years. But a lot of impressive things about New College, the number of PhDs, the creativity and the vibrancy on campus, and it definitely provides an important part of our portfolio.
Great. Well, thank you very much
Well, you're
for
welcome,
being here
Zach.
today.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for answering some questions.
Enjoyed it.
Thank you. And please tune in for another edition next week of Political Insider.